Welcome everyone, it's time for a new interview and today we're going to do it with two people about two projects and they are all integrated into the Avalanche ecosystem. We're going to talk with Kevin Sekniqi, the COO from Avalanche, and we're going to discuss Avalaunch with Mark Stanwyck, the CEO of Avalanche. And we're going to discuss everything that's needed to bring crypto further and also why Avalanche is different than all of the other platforms out there. So let's get started and have fun. But before that, do not forget to subscribe beneath and also like this interview. And now we can kick off with the interview in itself. Have fun. As discussed in the introduction today, I'm going to have an interview with two people regarding Ava Labs, Avalanche, and Avalaunch. It's with Kevin Sekniqi and Mark Stanwyck. I'm happy to have you here on this show. Maybe Mark could introduce himself first before we're heading to Kevin. Who are you? What have you done? And why have you decided to join the blockchain space?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for that. I'm Mark Stanwyck. I am one of the directors and co-founders of Avalanche, which is a launchpad ecosystem growth incubator accelerator built on Avalanche. I'm in the Avalanche ecosystem, for about a year now. And I was drawn here because it's quite unique, quite special relative to other things happening in crypto. But I've been around crypto a long time. I've been trading Bitcoin since 2011, 2012, and working in the space since 2016. It wasn't until about then where it became clear for a younger guy that there was a career path through this industry. Before it was a little too abstract. So I started working in communities, marketing, relationships, relationship building, communication strategies in crypto in 2016. And have worked on a variety of different projects. I mean, very, very deeply technical projects, early decentralized Oracle stuff, security stuff, verification, and then, all the way up to entertainment, gaming, just kind of touched it all in crypto, just whatever seemed interesting at the time. And over those few years have really distilled down into a space that I truly believe in, which is community and building community on real technologies. And that's sort of the natural connection between my career and why I'm building on Avalanche.
Wonderful. Thank you for the introduction. Maybe Kevin can introduce himself as well to the listeners.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I'm Kevin Sekniqi. I work at Avax, which is one of the primary software development companies working on the Avalanche Go client, part of the one of the clients, the major clients on the Avalanche platform. Avalanche is it's a core technology that effectively the goal of it is to provide a alternative to Ethereum that is very fast, but is compatible with Ethereum. It very much looks and feels kind of like a layer 2, like a Matic or a Polygon, except it's a layer 1. So when you move things over to Avalanche from Ethereum, you still get all of the compatibility you usually get with Ethereum. So it's smart contracts, Solidity, MetaMask, everything, but it's secure, secured by a very, very decentralized or a platform that can get to very high number of these of nodes, full validated nodes, and that's part of one of the breakthroughs of Avalanche actually, and it's extremely fast. So it's like 1 second finality, and it opens up the doors for some really, really interesting new applications that are currently probably very hard to achieve on Ethereum, and they're ready now on Avalanche. One of the key missing pieces of Avalanche before, I believe it's really ready to take off is a better onboarding with Ethereum through bridges. Once that ecosystem starts blooming a little bit more, I think Avalanche has a very big shot at becoming a place where people choose sort of almost like a no-brainer as an alternative to Ethereum when they want to deploy their applications. And they're suffering from fees, they're suffering from latencies, they're suffering from scalability. Avalanche is a really great alternative.
And what made you decide to join Avalanche or kickstart Avalanche instead of fixing all the issues that are on Ethereum?
I mean, I think it was part of that, right? So I think the issues of fixing Ethereum are probably even more complex because Ethereum is a complex life system with a completely different consensus protocol, which is proof of work, and there's a community around it to try to replace it. and we wanted to do something that that was fundamentally new and coming from a place of breakthroughs rather than just a place of small optimizations to what already existed. Avalanche comes out of a research group actually that was at Cornell University, whose entire history is just researching distributed systems. It came out of that group with some other a group that was sort of like collaborating with it, and it was a breakthrough in distributed systems. And we said, look, it's this clean new platform. Working with Ethereum could be one path. It's probably going to be way more complicated. And we decided to just do one, the separate thing. But the important thing that I think played really, really well is making Avalanche not reinvent the wheel with the Ethereum virtual machine. So it's very much compatible. It doesn't have some strange new virtual machines, some strange new Haskell, whatever language you need to program in. It's very much compatible, and that was probably one of the biggest best choices that we made as far as building it out.
Well, one of the questions that I also have regarding Avalanche is that there are so many different platforms out there right now. It's Polygon, it's Polkadot, it's Cosmos. In what way does Avalanche differ from all those other solutions or platforms out there at this stage? Could you maybe say something about that?
Yeah, it gets really subtle, and a lot of listeners can get bogged down in the weeds of terminologies like layer ones and layer twos and all that. I mean, effectively, as far as I know, Avalanche is actually the only layer one that is very much scalable and high performance. It can stick up to its claims, yet it's also EVM compatible. I don't know of any other layer one that is proof of stake that can scale to many thousands of nodes. That's number one. I just don't know of any. They don't exist. Avalanche can. I don't know of any other layer ones that is as fast, that is EVM compatible and yet as fast as Avalanche. There are some other EVM compatible chains, but they take very long because they have their own custom sort of old school consensus protocols, and they're not as fast as Avalanche. And there's Matic and all these other ones, which are layer twos. They're multi-sig blockchains, so you basically rely on a 5 out of 8 multi-sig, whereas Avalanche is a layer one. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, the simple answer to people that are non-technical is that there is no other blockchain that is both very secure, like Ethereum, that can get to tens of thousands of nodes, like Bitcoin. That is 1 second latency, and also supports the full tooling of the Ethereum community. So MetaMask and Ganache and all the other suites that people love on Ethereum, there's no other thing that supports it. So all of these things together make Avalanche super unique, super differentiated. It's effectively what Ethereum 2.0 wants to be, without the complexities of sharding, and it's available now.
Well, when we discussed that Avalanche is trying, or is actually a layer one, Avalaunch is the recently new started project on Avalanche. What is Avalanche trying to add to the ecosystem of Avalanche?
Yeah,
Mark.
So I mean, this Avalanche community is in a lot of ways is early. Kevin was talking about the bridge infrastructure and some of the kind of adoption pieces that still need to fall totally in place, and I think that's true. And so Avalanche's kind of position on this is, the broader market, the broader crypto space, sort of has not fully woken up to what's happening on Avalanche. There's a lot of noise, and it becomes very, very difficult if you're not technical to understand why Avalanche is actually different, why it's a real breakthrough. It gets lost because everything is cheaper, everything is faster. I love the technology, and even as a technology guy, I get oversaturated with the marketing. It becomes almost like, is anything ever new going to come out under the sun, in a certain way? So you sort of stop looking, stop trying. And I think when I entered the space and, working really in 2016, I was a real idealist about the technology, and over time, the market kind of beats that out of you if you're not careful, because the market tends to not reward that a lot of the time. And so, I almost like gave up on seeing something new. And when Avalanche came out, it was like a return to this of why I had gotten into crypto in the first place. You know, a real, truly decentralized. It has all of the ideals of crypto, but then also this sort of like this large team, large organization to support the onboarding, to support the marketing, which is relevant today. Like, you know, the days of the blockchain coming out of someone's apartment is just like over. Like, there's too much money, the space is too big. You need an organization to support this stuff. It's too large of a problem. To figure out the right market fit and, you know, bring this technology to the right people in the right ways. It's a monumental effort. And so, you know, once these pieces fall into place, I really think that Avalanche is going to take a much larger slice of this market than it currently does. And so the Avalanche position is well, I think this is where the future is, right? I have no sort of ambiguity about that. And so I'd like to be here, kind of standing in the middle of it, to help bring the right attention to this community of builders, because the people that are here, they get it, and they're very passionate, and they're very dedicated to it. And I want to support that real, natural, organic community that lives on top of the technology that Kevin's talking about now, because that, to me, that's the really special piece of crypto. Like, there's this groundbreaking computer science stuff, and then there's the people and the products and the relationships and the ecosystems that start to stand up on top of it. And so Avalanche is about supporting that. It's about waking people up, getting the right mind share over here. You know, opening people's eyes to what's happening, and helping them figure out what they want to build here. And if they want to build it, help fund it. You know, we have some other products in the future that all tie back into this idea of sort of community directed money and mind share, really. And so the Avalanche, the whole goal of Avalanche is to help grow this ecosystem in the ways that we think are important. You know, someone else can come in here and do it differently, but we want to kind of have our stamp on it, because for our money, like, we see what's happening here, and we want to make sure it's protected and supported. You know, you can't protect it forever. This thing will get big enough to where it's just impossible. But, you know, I think it's early enough where you can kind of have a say, and that's what Avalanche is about. It's like, let's do this right. You know, and it's you know, we won't get it right, but we're gonna try. And so we're a launch pad, but I think that really sort of doesn't do justice to what we're after, which is just really growing this thing in a way that makes a difference, from a community perspective, I mean.
Well, I mean, the community is quite heavy and big, as I see them popping up in my comments almost every day.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, I mean, you're supporting the ecosystem of Avalanche, but the ecosystem lives by network effect. So the more people that are going to use the actual blockchain, the stronger it will become. But how are you going to I think the game has changed a little bit, as in there are so many launch pads out there right now. How are you going to be different out of all those launch pads on Polkadot or on Cardano? I mean, or on any other of those platforms? How are you going to stand out and bring over those projects towards Avalanche and Avalanche?
Yeah. So the launch pad space, you know, if you can call it that, is definitely very saturated, and there's a lot of garbage, quite frankly. And like I said before, we want Avalanche to be so much more than just this way to change money from one hand to another. And so we're kind of re-engineering everything about launch pads. You know, these aren't just sales that happen and they're over in 2 seconds. And, you know, maybe you got the golden ticket for holding 1,000 of our token, and like, maybe you did and you didn't get it, whatever. Like, we don't want it to be this confusing mess. We want it to be this, like, thoughtful, community oriented experience. So teams that are raising on Avalanche can have, like, a good start to their project. Because the reality is, you know, a lot of times the public sale is the first interaction that a future community will have with their project. And so we take that as a responsibility, and we want to make sure that these things go smoothly. So our sales are kind of broken up a little differently. There's not just like this one big event. We have 3 rounds to our sales, and so the first round is a community round, and in that community round, you do need to hold our token. But there's no minimums, there's no maximums, there's no tiers. The idea here is, you know, you come to our staking contracts, you participate, you're part of the community, you'll get an allocation. You will earn an allocation that way. So it's a guaranteed allocation. Now, maybe it's smaller than something that you're used to, right? But what would you prefer? A smaller allocation, a guaranteed smaller allocation, or a bigger allocation that who knows who got it, and it certainly was not you. We think the market's kind of like ready for a positioning like that in terms of these sales, because what happens with these sales is they tend to be very tiny. No one gets in. They're never a good experience, and so I think there's trade-offs there that can change that change what the sales actually end up looking like, but it's a better experience for the community. So there's that first community round. Let's just say that's like 80% of what's being sold in the sales. And then after the community round, we have what's called the validator round. And so this is very unique to Avalaunch, and kind of goes back into sort of our community positioning and why we're really here. So if you're running a validator on the Avalanche network, you also have a guaranteed allocation in these sales. So whatever isn't sold in the first round will spill over into this round, in addition to what's set aside for this round to begin with. So if you're running one of these validators, you can come to our application, verify that you own this validator, and you'll also have a guaranteed allocation in these sales. And so the thinking there is like, these people are invested in supporting the network and securing it, likely early, a part of the community and the people really supporting this ecosystem. So they should have an allocation in the sale. Now, how many validators actually end up taking advantage of this? That remains to be seen, right? Like, they have to want to participate in the sale. They have to know about us. They have to care about us. They have to come to the application. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be kind of an interesting experiment, to support a network in this way. And so how this bears out over time, I think, will be sort of fascinating. But whatever isn't sold in that round, then that goes over into a public round, in addition to a small percentage. And this looks more like your normal sort of launchpad, but let's just say this is 5% of the sale. And so I don't love this sort of this setup that happens in this round, although we're doing some things to kind of improve over what happens on other launchpads and make it a little more fair. But what I do love about what it allows us to say is that you don't need to hold our token. Like, you don't need to run a validator. If you're just getting hip, if you just found out about this yesterday and you sort of want to get involved, there's still a chance for you to. It might be smaller, but if you want a bigger chance, get involved in the community, and you'll have better luck next time. And so it's just kind of this different approach to getting these things distributed that's really tailored for the Avalanche ecosystem. This wouldn't work on another chain, right? The way that this is set up. And the sales structure has been an evolution and a process. We launched inside of the community. We had some like a split architecture between Ethereum and Avalanche. And there was some thinking behind that about, trying to generate users and get them where they were comfortable. But it didn't really resonate with the community. And after thinking about it, it was like, no, we should just be on Avalanche, of course, right? But this was something that wasn't so obvious to us until we got in front of the community and started really building for these people. And the validator round is exactly the same thing. So, we're really, really reactive to what the community is saying they need. And just in doing that alone, it's different than other launchpads. So when projects are coming to Avalanche, and there's certainly going to be other launchpad fundraising options, I think why we're different and what we're able to offer is this buy-in, hopefully, from the community, and and this representation of the community and the builders. If that's important to your project, it might not be. You might just want to raise some money, and that's fine too. But when you're looking at the communities that come out of sales, what kind of community do you want? Do you want people that are deeply invested in Avalanche? If you're going to be building here, you want just flippers who are bounty hunting and will do whatever. I think it's a different quality of participant, and that's probably what we're able to offer over other solutions. In addition to some pretty cool technology that that we'll be releasing here soon, and just in terms of how the sales work and how they're fair, and whale mechanisms and stuff like that.
All right. Well, let's kick to the many chains that we have right now. Most of them try to become or say that they are fully decentralized. But however, we have got major mining pools that are actually taking care of decentralization or of the actual mining, which means that they are not decentralized. Do you believe that there is a major threat to these blockchains, Kevin, regarding this?
There is two things that we need to separate that is a little bit subtle. There is the ability for a blockchain to be decentralized with many thousands of nodes, not concentrated into anything, versus what it currently is right now. So I want to make sure that, like, you know, we give credit to, for example, Bitcoin and Ethereum a little bit more credit than it's due, because Bitcoin can actually become decentralized to infinitely number of nodes as one of the big properties of Nakamoto. So it's not like a limited by it. There are protocols that are objectively limited by the number of nodes. There's EOS and there is Tron, and these kinds of protocols are very much capped. There's only a certain number of nodes that can ever be participating here. But Bitcoin has suffered from economies of scale, and very obviously, I think it poses a major threat to the fact that we have so much concentration in the hands of a few pools. That's very, very clear. Ultimately, it's a question of if a catastrophic event were to happen and one of these pools were to go haywire and were to try to do something, what is the damage that this pool can do? If the damage happens to be irreversible damage, like a pool has majority control over the network, can rewrite transactions, can do whatever it wants, I think that's a disastrous situation to be in. I don't know that any pool in Ethereum right now has such power, so maybe not so bad, or even in Bitcoin as well. But there are many, many blockchains out there that have effectively unanimous control over the state of the network. There is a few parties, they know each other, they talk all the time, and they can effectively collude and do whatever they want with funds. This happens to be especially bad in layer 2s, which are executed by maybe like a multi-sig or something like that. They're also especially prominent in centrally managed layer 1s. I don't want to name any names, but there are many layer 1s that are controlled by one or two parties at most, effectively. And there's a huge systemic risk to these kinds of blockchains. But it's so varied. It's like so subtle and it's so varied. It's very hard to say. And ultimately, to me, what I'm concerned about is there a single party or maybe like a coalition of like one or two parties that can control the network and rewrite transactions, and that becomes the big question for me.
Well, back in the day, we had Greg Wright, who tried to become or do that with Bitcoin, right? Back in November 2018 or somewhere around that period. But the ultimate question is then, how does Avalanche change or make sure that they are fully decentralized and don't have these problems?
Yeah. So Avalanche has this property that it is the only, period, full stop, the only proof of stake protocol right now in production, not some theoretical thing in the future. The only one right now, proof of stake protocol, that has the ability to scale to thousands of nodes. Or in fact, it actually technically has no limit to the number of nodes that it can have. You can have 1 million nodes that are staked the same exact amount. So stake is distributed across them completely evenly. They're all full block reducers, and Avalanche is going to be able to handle them. And it's the only proof of stake protocol that can do that. The matter of the fact is that there's no such thing right now. There's no such thing as complete perfect distribution of stake. There are some parties that have more stake, some parties that have less stake. And one of the big things that I think we're trying to do, part of the research work that we're trying to do at Avalabs, as well as input from the community, is how do we structure staking in Avalanche in such a way that makes it really hard for people to pool together. And in fact, it further incentivizes for people to not pool together according to certain limits. There are certain hard limits right now, for example, on Avalanche. You cannot have a validator with more than 3 million of Avax. So it's capped. That's already a cap. You cannot create a pool more than 3 million of Avax, which is a very small percentage of the network. There are certain limits to how little you can stake, how much you can delegate to a certain node. For example, some blockchains have this weird property where if you create a new staking node, others can delegate an infinite amount of tokens to you, which becomes really weird because now you can grow to a very, very large amount, and there's no such thing in Avalanche. Whatever you stake, you can only have delegated up to 5 times that amount. And so there's all these certain amounts of there's all these certain levers that we're trying to play with that are going to hopefully incentivize people to distribute across multiple nodes. There are some really powerful ones that we've thought of theoretically, but haven't implemented yet. But it all comes down to effectively a matter of time. Time passes on, and I do believe the network is going to get really, really nicely evenly distributed. Right now, it's still too early. People haven't had the time to really move things around all too much. But the very important thing is that there is no limitation to it. So I have no worries about this getting to thousands of nodes with as even of a stake distribution as possible. I think that's the dream there.
Well, regarding scalability, we've got a different platform, which is Ethereum, which has enough problems with scalability, and that's why all those different platforms are created. Just a general question, but where do you see the entire markets heading from here? As in, there are so many platforms out there trying to become a better Ethereum. Are we going to see a few big winners, or is it going to be a full ecosystem out there with different platforms, Kevin?
No, I don't think there's going to be a very complex. I don't think there's going to be an ecosystem with many players. But I do think that I think first of all, there's going to be one language that's going to win. That's the important thing. It's not about the infrastructure that wins. It's about which common language wins. The internet has many different types of browsers. It doesn't matter which browser you use, Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Safari, Internet Explorer, whatever. What matters is there's one common language. There is the HTTP language. Everybody's speaking the same language, and that's how we can scale up to many users with many different properties. We're, I think, going to have Solidity and the Ethereum virtual machine win. It's not the best. I want to be clear. It's kind of like JavaScript. If you're a developer in the web world, you know that JavaScript is the de facto standard. Everybody uses it, but it sucks. It's an absolute nightmare to work with. And I think it's the same thing going to be with the Ethereum virtual machine. I think it's going to be the winner of the smart contract wars. Everybody's going to eventually have to adopt it or be left behind. And it's going to be like the unifying language. Everybody's going to speak Solidity. Everybody's going to speak the Ethereum virtual machine. And the question is, does it need to be all on the same blockchain? It simply cannot. There is no such thing as all of these arbitrageurs and speculators and day users coming into a single platform and it's scaling infinitely so into the future. It's just impossible. Ethereum can have as many shards as it wants in its ETH 2.0. It's simply not going to be able to scale up demand and capacity. So there is necessarily going to be, in my opinion, a slew of different blockchains that all speak the same language, all speak the EVM. And the really nice vision here, and it's not even a vision, it's obvious to me right now, or hindsight is 2020. There just needs to be an overlayer of automatic routing of requests. So there's a smart contract, there's an obvious smart contract, it's going to be on multiple chains that all speak the EVM. And there could be, for example, a lot of load on Ethereum, and instead of having the request go to Ethereum, it gets rerouted automatically to something like Avalanche. And so there's multiple blockchains, speaking the same language, where requests and dApps effectively interoperate really nicely with each other. And I think that's the obvious future that we're heading in. It's probably not going to happen in a year. That tooling is pretty well, I mean, it could happen, but it's kind of manual, it's kind of clunky, it's kind of crappy right now. But in a few years, I think it's going to all converge into this unified vision of everybody speaks the Solidity EVM, and there's just multiple blockchains depending on your needs, right? You may love to be on Ethereum and you don't want to move away from Ethereum. You may really care about high speeds, so you move to Avalanche and so on. And it's really a matter of preference. But ultimately, the users shouldn't really care. There's a dApp for lending. A dApp for lending can be existing in multiple EVM compatible chains, and the request just needs to route very kind of efficiently and dynamically across them. And then everything else will work out. It's kind of like the internet was built. The internet was not built by having everybody send all the global internet requests go to one router. It's distributed. It gets spread out there, and that's how I think blockchain tech is gonna scale out. And I think obviously Ethereum and Avalanche are gonna be two pretty major players, but I'm sure there's gonna be other major players in the space as well. There's gonna be probably some people that choose to be using Matic or something like that, and maybe some people are gonna be wanting to choose to use BSC. But all of these that I mentioned are all EVM compatible, and I see a future for all of them as long as they speak the same language.
And I guess in the end, the user literally doesn't care on what they are doing it as long as it works smoothly.
As long as it works smoothly and it's secure, right? You don't want to be
Yeah.
putting, I mean, I would be concerned about having my requests routed to some central party, you know, all that kind of stuff that could potentially, you know, shut down funds or something like that. And, or maybe it's just hacked, and that could be a pretty big problem, so.
Well, regarding those hacks, let's discuss the DeFi industry, as in DeFi had a very beautiful, idealistic narrative in which they wanted to bank the unbanked, and helping people out. However, DeFi has turned into an ape fest where everybody tries to get the highest API. What are both of you, your views on DeFi at this stage? Let's put Mark first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, you know, DeFi is obviously interesting. I think it represents a lot of what, you know, the true power of crypto is, you know, these new ways to think about and conceive and use and interact with money. Like at that base layer of crypto, like this is DeFi, this is what crypto is about. And I don't think it's an accident that, you know, after many years of sort of retail attention and energy existing in crypto and lots of different ways this could have gone, that, you know, DeFi is front and center at this point. Like it is truly useful. And it is the realization of a lot of the stuff that came out of 2017, you know, like you said, like banking the unbanked and, you know, money without borders and all that stuff. You know, it's just like a little, it's kind of like a caricature of itself almost, you know, in these days. But that doesn't mean that it's worthless. I think, you know, it's just, it's for my take, DeFi is the real value of crypto in many ways, but just bloated and like and inflated with this retail sort of energy. You know, you have to capture people day to day, and you have to keep users coming back. But it's like it's not obviously not sustainable. You know, when you're talking about you know, decentralization and things like that, I think DeFi comes into this conversation in a big way because, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of the people that are interacting with DeFi right now, not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, they don't really care too much about decentralization. Like if they could do this on their iPhone app, they would. They'd probably prefer it. Like it's not really relevant to them. But you know, because this stuff isn't sustainable and there's a lot of like systemic kind of risk happening with the way these things are built, I think there will be sort of some reckoning. You know, I'm not smart enough to sort of guess at what that looks like. But if I sort of try and see far out enough, what I do think is there's going to be this kind of flight to trust and quality, and that's why I'm on Avalanche. It's like I don't need to worry so much about the technical components. Like I'm smart enough to see the people and the technology that I can believe in and just live there and be there. And you know, DeFi is just it's just so crypto. It's like so amazingly crypto in every way. The personalities and, you know, the hacks, like it's like the hacks are like a sort of badge of honor at this point. I mean, it's insanity, and that's a part of crypto that I love. But it's just like it's not gonna sort of win any friends in the broader world. So, you know, it's got to change a lot. But at the heart of it, like that is what we're here for. That's what crypto is about. I think is empowering people to use money differently and just, you know, take control.
Yeah, well, we've got the entire Shiba Inu, Dogecoin, and even boxing matches in Dubai right now, which are taking the spotlight over crypto.
Yeah.
But Kevin, do you think that that at some time the fundamentals are going to take over again instead of all those retail meme coin mess that we have right now?
I'm conflicted because I'm a huge proponent of open market, you know, capitalism. I'm just a huge proponent of it. I believe that if you're willing to pay for something and you want to purchase something, of course, if it's not, you know, harmful, whatever, all that kind of stuff, then you should just be willing to purchase it for whatever price you want to purchase it for. And you know, this is the very fundamentals of open markets, of open democratic markets, and of capitalism. That's the foundation of it. I deeply believe in it. And you know, deep down, I just don't know that I, or frankly, absolutely anyone out there has the ability to police what something should be valued at. We can make estimations of, here's what I think this thing should be valued at. Aave, or, you know, whatever, has a particular amount of cash flows, and if you hold Aave, generate this much of cash flows, it's valued at so and so. We can do all that, but I don't know that there is any validity in policing whatever is being used on DeFi. DeFi is just a It's effectively a mirroring of what people want to be trading and doing on these kinds of platforms. And it's great. People should be doing it as long as there isn't any rug pulls, there isn't any hacks, there isn't anybody being actively malicious. Then, to me, it just seems like open market, and people are able and should be able to do whatever they want and launch all kinds of tokens that they want, as long as they comply and as long as they are the teams behind these tokens are not literally stealing funds. Then I see no problem with it. So I don't have any opinion over what's happening right now. To me, it's like as long as people are behaving okay, then I personally don't care, and I don't think anybody else should care. It's just capitalism at play here.
Well, I guess it's quite funny what is happening, and I truly enjoy it as well. But it's taking away the spotlight of what we're actually trying to achieve, or at least you as builders are trying to achieve. I mean, it's super funny to have, but it's only going in mainstream media about Dogecoin or Bitcoin, nothing in between.
And it's sad, I was even internally, I was speaking to somebody recently that I was working to potentially hire on the Avalanche side. And this person had no information about crypto. He just, peripherally heard about it. He's not into crypto at all. And then all he was telling me that all he's been hearing about is Dogecoin these days. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not what this space is. This is so embarrassing. And it was really hard pulling in these people when all they hear is about a meme coin going up. But ultimately, even that, it's kind of like, to me, it's like, the right to transact and purchase things that are not harmful to you or other people, even you, but like they're not harmful to other people, should almost be like a amendment, like a constitution, like should almost be like the Nth Amendment. It's like you have the right to purchase whatever you want. So if people want to purchase dog coins, whatever. It's a little bit embarrassing, but it is what it is. And I can't like, just principally, I can't sit there and be like, do not purchase it. It's bad for you. It's just people should do their own research, should do whatever they want, and ultimately it's a little bit embarrassing, but I think it's just capitalism at play. GME was no different in my opinion. GME was almost exactly the same thing as Dogecoin. It's not valued at what it's currently valued. It was purely a meme, and people on Robinhood spiked it to whatever they spiked it at. And it was embarrassment for a lot of people in mainstream finance, but ultimately, that's what people decided to buy, and people should have the right to do that. And same thing with crypto, Shiba and Dogecoin, whatever they want to do, it's their right to buy it, I think.
You might even want to have a discussion whether the Dogecoin is better or worse as the US dollar. I mean, if everybody is going to use Dogecoin at some point, well, let's not go there.
Yes.
Let's discuss a different topic, which is hacks and rug pulls, which you have already addressed a little bit there in your answer. It is pushing away people from the markets. And in what way do you think that Avalanche can prevent all those hacks or can do anything with it? And what should the market in itself be doing against it?
Yeah, I don't think that Avalanche or the platform can prevent these hacks, as they're going to be as readily possible as they are on Ethereum, unfortunately, and it's a very bad situation to be in. I mean, the one thing that I think we're trying to do as a service on the Avalanche side is provide a little bit of transparency, early on transparency. So I think this is something that missed from Ethereum Foundation. Ethereum Foundation, of course, anybody can launch anything on Avalanche like they do on Ethereum without requesting permission from anybody. But the one thing that our community has been requesting and we've been trying to give as a service is whenever there's a new project, we have some people from our side look at the code, vet the code, and see if the code has any very suspicious looking things. This is not a full audit, but certainly this is something that we're trying to do. So if we have projects and we take a look at their source code and we take a look at what they're doing, and we can say, you know what, this seems reasonable, proceed with caution, but this seems like something that should be doing. It's an added extra service. There is no guarantees behind it whatsoever, but I think it's strictly better than having absolutely nothing, as Ethereum early on had with all these rug pulls and scams. But ultimately, even though we're giving this voluntary service and providing some general review of things voluntarily with no guarantees, it is very much I think a problem of education more than anything else. The users in DeFi need to be educated around the risks associated with DeFi. Anybody can launch any token in 2 seconds on Avalanche, on Ethereum. It requires no permission, requires no auditing. You just launch it, and anybody can market that token. They can say that it's so and so without it being so and so, and then there you go. There's the rug pulls and scams, and it's ultimately not about policing who or what launches. You just can't. It's literally impossible. It's about educating people in the space to be like, look, if you see something come out of nowhere, and everybody's talking about it's hyped up, maybe take a second to review a little bit more, and maybe be a little bit more skeptical, and maybe be a little bit more curious. Lots of people that I know that have lost money have almost always lost money because they went in without looking at what this thing is about. They just heard about it, boom, buy, and that can go only south a lot of times.
Yeah, FOMO is a very bad thing to have if
It's
you're
very
trading.
bad. Yes.
Another different group of like companies or clients is enterprises, and those are quite needed to build this entire ecosystem further. What do you think is required to drive adoption for or among enterprises, Mark?
Yeah, so I do think Kevin's going to be very useful here too, because I know that so with the Avalanche architecture, there's some unique things about the way that they're building it that are going to allow companies, governments, enterprise, whoever, to come in and easily customize things while still retaining this trustless, decentralized, scalable sort of characteristic of the blockchain. So this looks like, whether it's subnets, subnets are these like sort of like blockchains on top of the platform. And Kevin could speak to this more deeply probably, or I'm sure. But these are customizable, so it doesn't matter the jurisdiction. You can restrict them to jurisdiction or certain access, or have your own rules or incentive structures and own set of validators. So it really is like this kind of the promise that is sort of inherent to all these other chains, like the customizable like universe of blockchains. Like this is what Avalanche is going after, and in that vision, you can have regulated chains and permission, because it goes back to what you're talking about, the hacks, and a lot of these companies and enterprise organizations that have use for decentralized technology, they're scared by this kind of stuff, right? So they need to be able to have their own level of control and feel like they're in control of their network, while still not losing any of the decentralization that's inherent and important to crypto. And that's one of the things that's unique about the Avalanche architecture.
Yeah, so this is a really great question, Michael. And one thing that we were very concerned with when trying to come up with certain designs on the research side of how we should build up a core platform, we realized that there is no way that one single permissionless open blockchain can fit all the use cases that would be possible by blockchain into the future. And there's going to be a lot of different financial primitives being built. And there's no way that a lot of these can potentially work on an open permissionless system. It's just the regulation is there for a reason, compliance is there for a reason. And so the notion of subnets was this idea that allows people to launch effectively application, or rather feature-specific blockchains on Avalanche that interoperate with other blockchains as well, so they're not isolated, but they are controllable. They're heavily controllable. So you can launch a subnet on Avalanche that, for example, you can say things like, customize the virtual machine. You can say things like, this subnet can only be validated by parties that are based in the US. So for compliance reasons, the data or can only be stored by entities based in the US. It cannot be outside of the US. And that's a very important primitive to have, for example. And so these are things that are very unique to Avalanche with the subnets, and they go well with the notion of there's an enterprise that has a feature that cannot be accommodated by an open permissionless system. One such that I just literally mentioned is the ability to have like geofencing of the data. So you cannot have this data stored, literally physically stored outside of the US. It has to only be stored inside of the US. And so you have to launch a subnet where the validators are effectively screened to be inside of the US, and that's an important property to have. And so this is a really big thing that I think is going to be really powerful to enterprises. We haven't really done a lot of talking about this kind of feature of Avalanche. It's very interesting. It's very unique to Avalanche, but we've been so focused on other things that there's no time. But no, I think I'm very excited about enterprise use cases. I'm very cognizant that compliance and regulation is extremely important for a lot of things, and a lot of times you require these feature-specific subnets for these kinds of things. And so I think I think the next few years with these kinds of applications are going to be really interesting for Avalanche.
Well, it would be great to have you on the show again in like 6 months from now and discuss how the progress is. But regarding how it's going, to me, it looks like Avalanche is accelerating really fast. I mean, it's been about 7 months since the mainnet launch. I guess a little longer, but like 9 months now. Can you tell us something about the developments since then and how it's going and what we can expect from Avalanche in the coming months?
Yeah, so a lot of development has been early on we were really focused on feature building on the core side. I mean, I'm talking about the client side. We're now much more focused on optimizations, and so getting the platform to be really stable, really fast across the board, fixing a lot of issues that came apparent when everything went mainnet. The next couple of months are going to be heavily based on these new upgrades that we're doing with Apricot, which is a very important upgrade to the Avalanche, which introduces really important features that are really needed for certain kinds of things. And lots of optimizations across the board, increasing the feature set of subnets. For example, that's another one that's going to be coming up in the next couple of months. And just a very big lift across the board as far as just the core client goes. Anything outside of that, there's just so much going on that I'm not personally involved in. There's a lot of people building a lot of applications on Avalanche, and it's growing. I would probably say full stop that Avalanche is the single fastest growing organic L1 outside of Ethereum. And I say this based on the data that I'm seeing, and I say organic because there isn't really a whole lot of incentives here. There's a lot of other layer ones that are paying a lot of money for people to deploy on Avalanche, and that's not the case here. It's actually very organic, very grassroots, and you can tell by the fact that Avalanche is burning so much fees per day. Even though the fees per transaction are very small, a lot of activity is going on. People are nonstop deploying these dApps, and people are yield farming, doing all kinds of things organically. And I think market maybe even add a whole lot more to that. But I think the activity going on outside of the core client, which is my area of expertise, is growing tremendously. All I can see is the fees that are being burned, which is through the roof. But maybe marketing could step onto that.
Well, I wanted to, I would wanted to ask, could you give us some names about those other projects? But I'm not going to do that. Let's discuss one of the projects that are being built on Avalanche. What can we expect from your project, Mark, in the coming period? Is it recently listed or it's just launched?
Yeah, so we listed actually on Pangolin, which is a Avalanche native AMM. So it's like the Uniswap of Avalanche. We listed on last Friday, so just newly listed. So that went, interestingly, I would say. We're kind of dealing with some stuff that's coming out of that, but we are looking at opening our staking contracts where people can actually earn allocations the end of this month. So once those are live, people can start using the Zava token. It will, have some more utility. There'll probably be a little more reason to actually have it in your wallet. And maybe a week or two after that, we want people to sort of be able to have some time to kind of get spun up and interact and actually start earning. We'll be running our first sale. So the platform will be going live in June. And we've been talking to some great teams that are looking to move to Avalanche and build on Avalanche and are already looking at taking advantage of just, the unique things about it that shouldn't be so unique. The speed and the decentralization. They're just drawn to that. I've talked to a lot of people that are like sort of reinvigorated and revitalized by what Avalanche offers. You know, they've been around crypto a long time, and kind of like me, they've sort of like lost steam because things are so hard to build, or so expensive, or communities are so crappy, or there's no actual community of builders. I mean, you have this on Ethereum, but it has a very, very specific character and color, and like I'm talking to a lot of Ethereum people too. There's no need to be like a maximalist about this. I'm certainly not. Like I enjoy watching the space and seeing people build, and I'm excited about it all. But we're talking to some great strong teams that are moving and building on Avalanche, and but we'll be working with a lot of them. So once we run that first sale, we'll be looking to do sales regularly, and that's just kind of the start for Avalanche. Like I talked about some other community directed initiatives. There's a real blank canvas here in terms of how you can involve a community in directing what gets built, and that does not stop with a launchpad. And so we'll have a lot of cool stuff coming out in the next year.
Wonderful. I'm going to wish you both a lot of luck with the progress of the project. And thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. Final
Yeah, thanks.
question. Where can we find every information about both of the projects or your personal social media accounts? Or is there anything that you want to add? And I'll kick it to Mark first.
No, man, this has been great. Thanks for having us. I really do appreciate it. In terms of like socials, yeah, I mean, Avalanche.app, and then from there you can find our Twitter, our Medium. We write a lot of good stuff. If you're interested in kind of how we look at the ecosystem and how we're positioned differently, you can check out our Medium. I think it's conveyed pretty well there. Join the Telegram, all the normal stuff.
Wonderful. Then I'll finish off with Kevin. Where can we find
Yeah.
all the information about Avalanche and maybe about yourself?
Yeah, no, it's just on Twitter. I mean, you can troll me on Twitter, Kevin Sekniqi, and then if you want to follow on Avalanche,
he'll get into it with you. Yeah.
yes, I will. I will definitely. I like being trolled, but yeah, it's just on Twitter. Avalanche is all over Twitter, so yeah, it's pretty easy to follow up with stuff on Twitter.
Wonderful. Then I'm going to once again wish you all of the luck with the projects, and thank you for being here. And I'm going to wish you a wonderful day as well. And thank you all for watching. Next week, a new interview with a different project. I'll see you again then.